Nobody deserves a free pass.
Our target is to win. Let's not mince our words.
How does it actually feel to go up against, essentially now, Pritam Singh and his team? Well, so this is a different setting for this podcast.
Sir Vanan, how are you?
I'm really good.
Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome to Aljunied. Why are you here, actually?
Well, hopefully I'm here to get some of your thoughts, your opinions, onto Majula Presents Local Politics.
Yes.
I got that right.
Well done. I mean, for those who don't know, my name is Daniel Liu. I'm the co-host usually, but today I'll be handing over my co-host duties to Vanan, who will be the full host, because with my friend here, Faisal, we've just been announced as candidates for PAP here in Aljunied GRC, officially. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. Grateful. Thank you for letting me crash your podcast today.
So this is the first time we've had two politicians on the show, officially.
Yes.
And one of them is me.
No. Yes, now you are on the other side. As you always like to say, you've taken out your podcast hat, now you're on politics hat.
Yes.
But let's try and keep true to the show, which is, Faisal, for you, I don't know if you've heard it, chances are...
A bit. I've had snippets.
Good. And then you would know that it's no agendas, just answers. So we try to cut above some of the deeply held conversations within Singapore about policy and politics. And so it's really timely to have both of you here. As you said, you've just been announced, so it's kind of hot off the press. So I'm also just trying to gather some perspectives, because as we were talking about it just before the pod, what would an average Singaporean want to know, right? Both of you guys are in quite a contested area. This is not a familiar hunting ground for PAP.
Well, it's a familiar hunting ground. I think we've been here we've been here forever.
We've never left, actually. I mean, it's been 14 years, right? So I think throughout these 14 years, the PP has learned, understood a bit more about the role of maybe opposition, how they can contribute. More importantly, I think what is the purpose of a PAP candidate in an opposition-held ward. So there's many things I think we can share, and maybe we can explore this later on.
So let's go with the first question that I've been wanting to ask both of you. How does it actually feel to go up against, essentially now, Pritam Singh and his team, if he is going to run here, but this is where he ran the last time. How does that feel, knowing that someone who is quite well liked in Singapore, who holds that embodiment of the leader of the opposition, that checks and balance that we call a lot in Singapore, how does it feel like going up against someone with that kind of a stature?
I'll let you answer this, bro.
Oh, thanks, you arrow me. Look, we recognize going into Aljunied is a very difficult fight, all right? Ultimately, I think no political party deserves a free pass, all right? For me, I've been actually in Kaki Bukit for 10 years, helping the former branch chair. Now that I'm taking the helm of the chairmanship, I've been appointed chairman, and recently, of course, this morning announced as a candidate for Aljunied GRC. It is our job to ensure that every vote is being fought for. Not just does the PAP need to fight for every vote, even the Workers' Party, the opposition, whoever they may be, has to fight for the vote as well. Nobody deserves a free pass. So I see that as my role, first of all, and we have to be good, legitimate candidates. We are fighting against a very strong opposition party for sure. So we cannot be very chinchai, We just go there and just be placeholders. That's definitely not what we are. That's definitely not what we intend to achieve.
Now, I think for someone who's watching this, particularly for me, who was interested in politics, I think your story is going to be quite an interesting one as we lead up to the general election. Right? I think Sengkang, from the last results, it's going to be an interesting point for Singaporeans to view. This area, maybe not like West Coast or Sengkang, this area almost feels like this is a Workers' Party area, right? That whoever's coming here, not only is it going to be very difficult, I think most Singaporeans might even just not expect you to have any say at all in the decisiveness of what happens in Aljunied. In the last GE, PAP got 40% of the seats here. Now, as a team, do you have any targets? Do you have any ambitions? Do you have any set in goals for yourselves? How are you going to approach or move that 40% mark?
No, look, I think definitely our target is to win. Let's not mince our words. I think all of us are united behind that goal. And I think we wouldn't be here unless we felt strongly that we can win. We know that it's a tough ground, we know that the opposition is strong, but we do believe in our vision a bit more, that we can bring it forward. So for me, and I think probably for the rest of the team, we don't see this as a fight between two political parties. we are 5 people. We and the 4 of us, we are 5 people who believe very strongly in community service. We believe that actually there's a lot of things that can be better here. I think we can help a lot of people if we had the chance to represent them in Parliament as well. So for us, it's not about trying to win at a national level, it's trying to win at a local level for our residents. And yeah, I mean, besides that, I think everywhere this GE will be a tough fight. It's not just going to be here. So Singaporeans don't really have to worry about having no opposition in Parliament. I think those days are beyond us. We've matured as a society a lot more. Yeah, but I do echo what you think, which is that it's been 14 years.
Yeah, so I think on that point, to push the needle, that's another thing, right? That's of course our election strategy. It's very important for us to listen to the ground, to hear what they want. Singaporeans want to be heard. The conduit or the way maybe can differ, but I think at the end of the day, Singaporeans want to be heard. And I believe the 5 of us, we have the ability to speak up for the residents, hear their concerns, and hopefully, represent them in Parliament. We will speak up for them without fear or favour. Even though we are from PAP, it doesn't mean we are muted. And I think you can see this recently in the COS debates.
Yeah.
Backbenchers fiercely fighting for Singaporeans.
Yeah.
We will do the exact same thing. And I just want to put actually this scenario to Singaporeans or to Aljunied GRC residents. Imagine this PAP wins it back this election. Just imagine how hard we will ensure that we will do our best.
Yeah.
There's the amount of dedication we will put in for residents.
Yeah.
Because winning it back is telling us that, wow, we really value your vote. We will make sure we will do our best for you, for Singapore, Singaporeans, and hopefully 5 years later, the next election, you will continue to support us.
You see, this is fantastic that you said it in that way, because I think this is what separates local politics from other podcasts in Singapore.
Yeah.
Most people would hear this statement from a lot of politicians in the next coming weeks. We want to represent your voice. We want to do something for you. We are going to improve your lives.
Yeah.
Now, from a policy perspective, right? I know both of you come from very different professional backgrounds. You're a dentist, Faisal, and health inequality or health security matters a lot to you. You come from a varied background, particularly now in the built environment sector. You look at the urban planning of different cities and increasing livability. Now, I want to ask you both from your own perspectives, from a very real, tangible policy perspective, is there a problem in Singapore and what your background is, and specifically how you're going to address and fix it for the residents?
Yeah, so health inequality is a huge thing, right? Health inequality is not so much of the how, it's so much of the why. Why do certain groups of people have poorer health than others? And I think in my engagement with people, and of course in my career, we find that people don't prioritize it, not because of the lack of interest or they don't find it important, but because they are conflicting sort of like priorities in their lives. Right? So, give you an example. A family with 6 children, right?
Yeah.
Low income, have to work double shifts to support them. They don't have time to bring their children to go to the dentist. They don't have time for themselves, to go to the dentist to get it checked. That is one, time. What about accessibility, cost, things like this. So when we tackle health inequality, it's not just about making things cheaper and more accessible. It's really about understanding the social circumstance around it and how we can solve all of these issues so that they can prioritize your health.
I'm going to push you. Is there one policy you want to see passed in Singapore if you get elected?
The use of AI in community-based health screening programs.
And you, Daniel, what kind of policy areas do you want to see improved? And what do you want to tell people, if you work for me, this is what I'm going to champion, this is what I stand for?
Look, I have a background in a whole host of policy areas, but again, as you know, rightly mentioned, because of my own professional background, and I've worked in public policy around the world now, basically in terms of livability, and having this experience, maybe not in Aljunied, but in other parts of Singapore as a grassroots leader, there are a lot of tangible examples in my head of how we can do better with our public housing and how we can do better with our urban planning. These include things like managing the rollout of BTOs in a way that is more coordinated with other agencies, or even planning for them in a way that enhances their livability by connecting them to other estates in a more holistic way. I think planning now, because of the way the government is doing it, there's a whole backstory about how HDB development has got to this point, but it's done sort of in clusters, and you can be living very close to your neighbors, but in 2 different clusters and feel not as close as you should. What I would like to do is really make sure that we can have a hard look at this, understand why, and fix it. Another point is also the rolling out of the amenities on the ground. When people move in, we should have all the amenities that they need ready to go. Things like schools, the bus services. In the past, and even now, I don't want to disparage the government. They've done a great job. But I think we can do a little bit better with how we plan the rollout of these different amenities so that, when people buy BTO, they move in, the childcare centers are ready. There's enough access to your neighborhood or town centers so that people can get to the transport as easily as they want. And I think this really requires a dedicated force within Parliament to push for it, because you need someone with a bit of experience, with a bit of ground experience, with a bit of professional experience to talk to, hopefully by then cabinet colleagues, and push the civil service to do a bit better. So this is something that I can only really do if I was able to be elected.
So actually that's a very good point, right? Because you said in your press release earlier, you have touch points to the government. So for someone who might think right now, sitting in their living room watching this, these guys are already part of the party. They are professionals. They can already invoke change. Isn't it better I vote for the Workers' Party, have some kind of checks and balance, and you guys shift the needle policy-wise anyway? It's a win-win situation for the resident, right? What would you say to someone who thinks that way?
I disagree with that premise, actually. Although we can have informal conversations with our fellow party members and so on and so forth, we do not have the mandate to actually represent their views. So it's as simple as me having kopi with someone is very different from having a formal meeting and coming up with proper suggestions to help improve everybody's lives, like in Parliament, for example, which is the highest decisioning body. Actually, I want to make a proposal here. Why don't Singaporeans consider this, right? A PAP town council, a PAP MP in Parliament, and a Workers' Party NCMP. 3 in 1. Why not?
Even better than 2 in 1.
Even better than 2 in 1, right? 3 in 1, why not?
Yeah.
Right? So you get a town council managed by the PAP, you get our voice to fight for you in Parliament, or for local issues and national issues, and you got the voice of the Workers' Party to speak for you on national issues. I think, I know that Singaporeans will stand to benefit from such strong contestation, and I hope they can consider this proposition.
If you allow me to put on a pundit hat for a moment, I just want to make the point that there is a political cost to voting for one party for the sake of it without really understanding what their policy views are. For example, when I talk about public housing or urban development, the PAP, the Workers' Party, and even someone like the PSP actually have quite fundamental differences in their approach to how they think urban planning should go. So if you think the way I've explained myself is something that you think is valuable to you and would like to support, and you think, okay, maybe I don't have to vote for him because he can still push it behind the scenes, whereas the Workers' Party remains as like a check and balance, actually, that makes it much, much more harder for what I'm saying to happen, because they're going to be pushing their own housing agenda, which I think we can address at a later stage, is probably not, in my mind, as an economical one as possible. So it's not just about voting for an opposition to be a checks and balance. You're actually voting for their policies. And if you don't resonate with their policies, then it's going to make it much harder for the policies that you resonate to come up.
Look at each and every individual and decide which team you feel you want to vote into Parliament. Don't look at one individual in a team, love their soundbite so much, love their speech so much, and vote for the whole team just based on that one individual. I think as a democracy, we can do better than that. We are well-informed citizens and Singaporeans, so let's look at what both sides have to offer and then we decide.
Look, you all are really busy people, so just before we finish up this particular new aspect of this pod, I just want to ask this quick question that I think most people will be thinking about.
Sure.
Do you consider yourselves an underdog contesting in Aljunied GRC as PAP candidates?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I wouldn't say underdogs because it is a tough fight. I don't deny that. I don't deny it's a tough fight. And the opposition is strong. But I don't consider myself and the team an underdog because actually we're pretty professional people. We balance being professionals. We also balance being in the community. These are things that take a lot of sacrifice to do. And we've done them well to get to this position, I think. So I don't naturally see ourselves as underdogs because I think we can win it.
Yeah. being underdog doesn't mean that we're weak,
Yeah.
right?
True.
Being underdogs means people don't expect us to win. But we are a strong team, and I echo what Daniel has said. We've read our introductions and so on and so forth, and we are really in it here to win it, not just be placeholders.
Yeah.
So we are underdogs because it's always very difficult to fight an incumbent who has sunken deep roots in the community.
Yeah.
But we will try our best.
Good.
Oh,
I mean,
well
it's a long, it's a start of a long journey for you guys and quite a tiring one. So
Not that long, but
Been 10 years for me. I don't know about him.
I wish you guys all the best.
Thanks.
And,
Thank you.
and maybe speak to you after the election. Thanks for coming on to Majula Presents Local Politics. It's really great to have your perspectives on politics and policy. And I guess we'll let Singapore decide what they choose at the end. So for now, please continue to subscribe. Please continue to share our videos.
Yeah.
We are Majula Presents Local Politics. No agendas, just
Answers. Hey.